The soft glow of the lamp spills across the worn but comfortable rug in our living room. Elias is finally asleep in his crib, his small chest rising and falling with the quiet rhythm of innocent slumber. Daniel is curled up in his favorite armchair, sketching designs on his tablet, the faint scratching sound of familiar comfort. This is our world. Our safe, warm, chosen world. Sometimes, in the quiet moments like this, a profound sense of peace washes over me, so powerful it almost feels like a physical presence in the room. It is a peace hard won, forged in fire and heartbreak, but it is mine. My name is Stella Carter. I am 32 years old. I am an artist, a wife, a mother, and a survivor of a kind of family that felt more like a cage than a home. For as long as I can remember, I existed in the orbit of Lucas, my older brother. He was the undisputed star of the Carter universe. Charismatic, ambitious, destined for greatness in the eyes of our parents, Caroline and Robert Carter. Lucas excelled in school, chose a conventional, lucrative path in finance, and effortlessly collected accolades and parental approval. Meanwhile, I pursued art. Sketching, painting, eventually graphic design. It was my passion, my language. But to my parents, it was little more than a quaint pastime. "That is interesting, dear," my mother would say, peering dubiously at one of my canvases. "But have you thought about something more stable? Like Lucas's field?" My father, a man who reserved his attention and conversations for business or Lucas, would typically offer a brief, dismissive nod, his eyes already back on his newspaper or the financial news. Lucas himself was a master of the condescending compliment or the backhanded remark. "Nice little drawing, Stella. Maybe you can do caricatures at corporate events," or "must be nice having so much free time for your hobbies." Their subtle messages, day after day, year after year, chipped away at my self-worth, leaving me feeling like an outsider in my own family. Holidays were particularly difficult. Gatherings revolved around Lucas's successes, his travel, his future plans. My life felt like a footnote, if it was acknowledged at all. There were countless dinners where no one asked about my freelance work, my latest project, or even how I was truly feeling. My presence felt obligatory, a necessary prop in the family tableau, but utterly unimportant. The news of my pregnancy was met with this same chilling indifference, perhaps amplified by their perceived inconvenience. I was 31, married to Daniel for 3 years, and we were overjoyed. Sharing the news with my parents felt like stepping into a cold draft. Mother's smile vanished. "Pregnant," she repeated, as if I had announced I was joining the circus. "No. But what about your graphic design? How will you manage?" The unspoken part hung heavy in the air. "You're barely managing as it is." My father, seated in his usual armchair, simply rustled his newspaper, effectively closing the conversation. There was no warmth, no excitement, no offer of help. In that moment, any lingering hope I had clung to, that perhaps a grandchild might soften them, finally died. I walked away from that conversation feeling heavier than my pregnancy already made me, but also strangely lighter. I no longer had anything to hope for or to lose where their approval was concerned. Weeks later, a thick, heavy envelope arrived, the kind that screams expense and importance. Inside, an invitation embossed with gold. "Lucas Carter and Penelope Sterling cordially invite you." Penelope was from a prominent, wealthy family. Their engagement was not just a union of two people, but a strategic merger, carefully orchestrated, designed for maximum social impact. This party was to be a dazzling display of power and prestige. Seeing the invitation, a wave of nausea, not entirely related to pregnancy, rolled over me. The thought of stepping back into that world, into their narrative, felt suffocating. I stared at the invitation on the kitchen counter, my fingers tracing the raised gold lettering without opening the ribbon. Daniel found me there. He already knew. He knew the history, the deep, complex layers of hurt and longing and eventual detachment. "Do you want to go, Stell?" he asked gently, his voice full of understanding. A part of me wanted to shred the elegant paper, burn it, pretend it never arrived. Another, foolishly vulnerable part, whispered about obligation, about not wanting to create more drama, about that persistent, unwanted flicker of hope. I I do not know, I admitted, the words barely a whisper. I do not want to regret not going, but I am scared of going. Daniel walked over, putting his arms around me, resting his hands on my swollen belly. Then we will go, he said, his voice firm, a promise. We will go together. But, he paused, looking into my eyes, serious. You are my priority. Our baby is my priority. If you feel uncomfortable, if you feel unwelcome, if you feel anything that makes you want to leave, you just tell me. One word. And we walk out. No explanations, no goodbyes. Just us leaving. Deal. His absolute certainty, his placing my well-being above any social expectation or family obligation, was like a lifeline. It was the kind of unconditional support I had craved my whole life. Deal, I said, leaning into him. Protected. A week before the party, Mother called again. Not about the baby, but about the seating chart. Stella, her voice was tight, strained. There has been a rearrangement. Your table is near the service entrance. It is quieter there, better for you, is it not? It was not a question. It was a command, a clear signal of my relegated status. The quiet was code for out of sight. She then launched into a string of complaints about last-minute changes and difficult guests, clearly stressed, but never once asking how I was doing. This reinforced my decision to go, but on Daniel's terms, prepared to leave. The morning of the party, I stood in front of the mirror, struggling with my dress. It was a simple, elegant navy blue, chosen for its comfort more than anything else. At 36 weeks pregnant, comfort was a luxury. My back ached constantly, my feet were swollen, and fatigue was a constant companion. As Daniel helped me with the zipper, his touch gentle, I looked at my reflection. I saw the exhaustion, yes, but I also saw the curve of my belly, a symbol of the new life inside, a life separate and precious, entirely mine and Daniel's. I applied a little makeup, put on the small sapphire earrings Daniel had given me, and took a deep breath. Tired, but resolute. The drive to the country club was quiet, filled only by the low murmur of the radio and Daniel's hand resting reassuringly on my leg. He glanced over at me occasionally, a silent check-in, and I appreciated his presence more than words could say. As we turned onto the long, winding driveway of the club, the scene unfolded before us like a movie premiere. Rows of expensive cars, impeccably dressed guests gliding across manicured lawns, the grand facade of the clubhouse glittering under the early afternoon sun. An immediate wave of self-consciousness washed over me. My dress felt suddenly inadequate, my swollen body cumbersome. This was not my world. Inside, the ballroom was breathtakingly opulent. Soaring ceilings, crystal chandeliers casting shimmering patterns, enormous floral arrangements of imported roses filling the air with a heavy, sweet scent. White and gold were everywhere, the colors of opulence and perfection. It was beautiful, undeniably, but it felt cold, impersonal, designed for display, not for warmth or connection. It felt like a gilded cage. We were greeted by a polite young woman holding a tablet, not by my parents or Lucas. Table 17, she informed us with a practiced, impersonal smile. We found our table tucked away in a corner, almost out of sight of the main stage and dance floor. It was indeed near a service door, the hum of activity from the kitchen hallway a constant backdrop. The tablecloth was slightly wrinkled, the silverware not quite matching the gleaming sets on the tables closer to the center. It was clear we were meant to be seen, but not truly present. An afterthought. Daniel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but he remained calm, pulling out my chair. I gave him a small, knowing smile. "It is okay," I whispered. We knew. He just squeezed my hand in response, his silent anger a comfort. "I will be right back," he said, checking his phone. "Need to take this call outside, too loud in here." I nodded, watching him head towards a side exit. I needed to stretch. My back was killing me. Sitting still was becoming increasingly difficult. I stood up slowly, placing a hand on my lower back. As I did, I scanned the room. My parents were holding court near the entrance, Mother in a stunning designer gown, Father looking proud and distinguished. Lucas was with Penelope and her parents, a tableau of successful alliance. They looked happy, perfect, completely absorbed in their world. Then I saw Aunt Lydia across the room, a kind, gentle soul who had always shown me more warmth than my immediate family, though her kindness was often subtle, almost hidden, as if not to provoke Caroline's disapproval. She caught my eye and offered a small, sad smile, a hint of understanding in her expression. A little further away, I spotted Chloe, a friend from my previous event planning days, whom I hadn't seen in a while. She looked surprised to see me, then a flicker of concern crossed her face as she noted my condition and location. Small reassurances that not everyone here was part of the cold performance. As I stood there, trying to get comfortable, adjusting my dress, I heard his voice, sharp, critical, right behind me. Stella. Honestly. I turned. Lucas. He looked immaculate, confident, the star of the show. Penelope was beside him, her expression polite but guarded. Lucas's eyes swept over me, lingering on my swollen belly, his lips curving into a faint, dismissive smirk. "Look at you," he said, his voice low, but audible enough to make me feel exposed. "You are quite prominent, are you not?" He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice further, an insincere attempt at discretion. "Look, Stella, this is important. Penelope's family, they're business associates. This is a big deal. Can you not just try to stay out of the way? You are attracting attention." A familiar wave of hurt washed over me, quickly replaced by a stronger, more powerful feeling. It was not just my own pain anymore. It was a fierce, protective instinct for the life growing inside me. I met his gaze directly, my voice calm but firm. "I am pregnant, Lucas. This is what a woman looks like at 9 months. I am not attracting attention. I am simply present." I took a breath, my resolve hardening. "And I will not stay out of the way for your convenience. I was invited. I am here. If my presence is such an issue, perhaps you should rethink your guest list in the future." My quiet defiance seemed to genuinely shock him. He had clearly expected me to shrink away, apologize, and retreat as I often had in the past. His face hardened, his eyes flashing with sudden anger. "Do not be ridiculous," he hissed, grabbing my arm tightly, his grip surprisingly strong. "You always have to make everything about you, do you not? This is my day. Mine. You are ruining the aesthetic." He gave my arm a hard, angry shake. "Just move. Go sit down. Stop making a scene." It was not a gentle nudge. It was a sudden, violent shove, aimed to get me out of his space, to make me lose my balance. My body, heavy and unwieldy with pregnancy, was no match for the unexpected force. I cried out, stumbling backward. My feet tangled and I fell. The fall felt like it lasted forever. My arms instinctively went out, but they could not break the momentum entirely. There was a sickening, jarring impact as my head, and then my back, hit the unyielding edge of a large, decorative marble pedestal that stood nearby, part of an elaborate floral display. A blinding flash of pain exploded behind my eyes. Then a sharp, tearing sensation in my lower abdomen and back, and immediately, undeniably, the gush. A warm, heavy fluid soaking through my dress, spreading rapidly on the cold marble floor. Gasps erupted from the people nearest us, a collective intake of breath. I lay there, stunned, disoriented, pain radiating through my body. My dress clung to me soaked. Blood trickled down the side of my face from where I had hit my head. And then, cutting through my daze, I heard the voices. My parents. They rushed towards me, their faces not etched with concern, but with pure, unadulterated fury. "Stella, what have you done?" Mother shrieked, her voice hoarse with outrage, looking not at me, but at the growing puddle on the floor, at the potential for a scene, a scandal. Father stood over me, his jaw clenched tight. You selfish girl. You ruined everything," he spat, his voice low and venomous. "On his day. You always have to make a scene, do you not?" Lucas, pale and shaken, quickly joined them, pointing at me. It was her fault. She provoked me. She would not listen. I could barely process their words through the pain and the ringing in my ears. I was in agony, terrified for my baby, and they were screaming at me, accusing me of ruining a party. Penelope stood frozen, her hands covering her mouth, her eyes wide with horror and disbelief, looking back and forth between me on the floor and the monstrous behavior of her fiancé's family. Aunt Lydia was trying desperately to get closer, calling out, "Caroline! Robert! Stop it! She is hurt. Get help!" But they ignored her. And then, like a thunderclap cutting through the awful tableau, I heard his voice, raw with panic, filled with protective fury. "Stella! Daniel!" He ran towards me, shoving past stunned guests, his eyes fixed on me lying on the floor, bloody, soaked, in obvious distress. His face twisted in horror as he dropped to his knees beside me, his hands shaking as he gently checked my head, my face. "My God, Stella, oh my God, who did this to you?" His voice was thick with emotion, with fear. People around us started speaking, shouting. "It was her brother. He shoved her. She fell right there. Her water broke. Her parents are yelling at her. She hit her head." Daniel's head snapped up, his gaze burning holes in Caroline, Robert, and Lucas. His expression shifted from fear to pure, cold rage. "You," he growled, his voice low and lethal. Then standing up, his voice rising to a roar that cut through the entire ballroom, "Call 911. Now. Someone call." He simultaneously pulled out his own phone, dialing quickly. "Yes, this is an emergency. At the country club name. My wife, Stella Carter. She is 9 months pregnant. She has been physically assaulted by her family. Her brother shoved her. She fell and hit her head. Her water has broken. She is bleeding and in pain. We need an ambulance immediately. The people who did this are still here." His clear, concise instructions amidst the panic were effective. Within minutes, the wail of sirens grew closer, then burst through the entrance doors. Police Officer Cooper and a team of paramedics entered the chaotic scene, their presence immediately imposing order. They took in the sight, a pregnant woman on the floor, clearly in distress, her protective husband beside her, and a group of agitated, well-dressed people nearby, some pointing, others recoiling. Officer Cooper approached calmly, but with authority. "All right, clear the area. What happened here?" Daniel, shaking but composed, quickly explained the situation, pointing directly at Lucas, Caroline, and Robert. "My wife was deliberately shoved by her brother. She fell, hit her head, and it triggered her labor. Her parents then verbally assaulted her while she was injured on the floor." Witnesses immediately stepped forward. Aunt Lydia, her voice trembling but resolute, corroborated Daniel's account and spoke briefly about the family's long history of mistreating me. And then Chloe, my friend, stepped forward with her phone held out. "I recorded it, officer," she said bravely, starting from when her brother shoved her and their parents' reaction. The sight of the video being handed over sent a jolt of panic through Caroline, Robert, and Lucas. Mother immediately stepped forward, indignant. "Officer, this is a gross misunderstanding. My daughter is prone to dramatics. This is a family matter." Father nodded in agreement, puffing out his chest. "You cannot arrest us. We are prominent members of this community." Lucas stammered, "It was an accident. She tripped. She provoked me." Officer Cooper remained unfazed. "Ma'am, sir, Mr. Carter, assault is not a family matter when it results in injury, especially to a pregnant woman. And with multiple witnesses and video evidence, misunderstanding is not a word I would use." He turned to Lucas. "Based on probable cause, witness statements, and evidence, you are under arrest for aggravated assault." He then turned to Caroline and Robert. "You are being detained for questioning regarding your role in the incident and potential obstruction." The sight of Lucas being handcuffed, his face pale with shock, was surreal. Mother shrieked, trying to grab Officer Cooper's arm. "You cannot do this. It is his engagement party." Father protested loudly, citing lawyers and connections. Then Caroline too was handcuffed, and finally Robert. They were led away through the shocked crowd, their previous arrogance replaced by disbelief and sputtering outrage. Lucas, as he passed Penelope, tried one last desperate plea. "Penelope, baby, please tell them." But she just looked at him with cold, final disgust and turned away. The final, Crushing blow to their carefully constructed world came swiftly. Penelope's parents, standing near the exit, having witnessed the entire appalling spectacle of their future in-law's true nature, made their decision clear. Penelope's father, a man of quiet authority, spoke loud enough for many to hear. "The Sterling family," he announced, his voice cutting through the murmurs, looking directly at the retreating backs of the arrested Carters, "considers this engagement terminated immediately. We will not tie our name to a family that engages in such despicable, violent behavior. Character is paramount, and yours, clearly, is bankrupt." A collective gasp went through the remaining guests. The perfect party, the strategic alliance, the carefully cultivated image, it all shattered in that instant. Paramedics had been working on me through the arrests and the announcement, their focus purely medical. They checked my vitals, the baby's heart rate, speaking gently and professionally. "You are stable, Stella," one of them said. "The baby's heart rate is strong. We are getting you to St. Jude's. They are prepped and ready." As they lifted me onto the stretcher, the pain was intense, the contractions coming hard now. Daniel held my hand, his eyes fixed on mine. "I am right here, Stell," he promised, walking beside the stretcher as they moved me towards the waiting ambulance. "You are going to be okay." Being wheeled out of the opulent ballroom, away from the stunned faces and the ruined party, felt like emerging from a nightmare. The cold beauty of the venue, the symbol of everything my family valued, was now tainted, broken, just like their image. The ambulance sped through the streets, sirens blaring. Inside, it was a cocoon of calm confidence. The medical team focused entirely on me and the baby. The pain of the contractions was overwhelming, but Daniel's presence, his quiet strength, was a constant comfort. He never let go of my hand. "I am so sorry," he murmured again. "I should never have left you." "You did not do this," I whispered back, squeezing his hand with all the strength I had. They did. At St. Jude's, the maternity team was ready and waiting. Dr. Davis was there, her familiar, kind face a welcome sight. They moved efficiently, getting me settled in a labor and delivery room. The contractions were coming fast now, hard and relentless, clearly jump-started by the trauma. It was a grueling labor, my body exhausted by the stress and the fall, but a fierce determination pulsed through me. I focused on Daniel, on the life inside me. This pain had a purpose. It was bringing my son to me, into a world that would be safe, unlike the one I had just left. Hours blurred into a haze of pain, breathing, pushing, Daniel's unwavering support, the steady guidance of the nurses and Dr. Davis. It was the hardest physical thing I had ever done. But with each contraction, I felt myself pushing not just a baby into the world, but pushing away the trauma, the past, the people who had tried to break me. And then, finally, the cry. The most beautiful sound I had ever heard. Elias. My son. He arrived just as the sun was fully risen, tiny, perfect, letting out a strong, healthy cry. They placed him on my chest, his warm body against mine, and I just sobbed. Tears of relief, of exhaustion, of profound, overwhelming love. "Hello, sweetheart," I whispered, stroking his soft cheek. "Welcome to a better world." Daniel leaned over us, tears streaming down his face, kissing Elias's forehead, then mine. "You did it, Stell," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You did everything right." We stayed in the hospital for several days. I needed time to recover from the fall, the head injury, the intense labor. The medical staff at St. Jude's were angels, providing not just physical care, but genuine kindness and compassion. Holding Elias in my arms during those quiet hospital nights, watching him sleep, feeling his tiny weight against me, solidified my resolve. They had hurt me, but they had not won. They would not define my future or Elias's. During my hospital stay, Aunt Lydia and Chloe visited. Aunt Lydia brought flowers and tearfully apologized for not speaking up sooner, though I knew her position in the family was precarious. She vowed to support me however she could, including testifying. Chloe showed me how quickly her video had spread online, millions of views, comments pouring in condemning my family's actions. It was strange, this public validation, but also strangely empowering. People I had never met were outraged on my behalf. Chloe also reaffirmed she would testify. Then, new detail. A lawyer representing Caroline, Robert, and Lucas contacted Daniel. They wanted to arrange a meeting, discuss a settlement, implying they wanted me to drop the charges, suggesting it was all a regrettable misunderstanding. Daniel brought the message to me. I did not hesitate. Tell their lawyer we have our own lawyer, I instructed Daniel, my voice calm and firm. Tell them the only discussion we will have is in court. There is no settlement. There is no misunderstanding. There is only accountability. This was not about money. It was about truth and justice. As soon as I was discharged, Elias safely in his carrier, Daniel by my side, we went directly to James Miller's office. I felt physically weak, but my resolve was iron. I recounted the events again, calmly, clearly. Daniel added his account. Chloe provided the video. Aunt Lydia her willingness to testify. Miller was confident. We have a very strong case, Stella, he assured us. Aggravated assault, child endangerment, reckless endangerment. With this evidence and these witnesses, we will pursue full charges. The next few months were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. Depositions, hearings, court dates. Facing my family in court was emotionally draining, seeing their attempts to lie, to minimize, to shift blame onto me. They tried to paint me as unstable, attention-seeking, manipulative. Their lawyers tried to discredit Chloe's video, Aunt Lydia's testimony. But I stood strong. I showed up to every hearing, often with Daniel and Elias present. Miller advised it showed our reality, our family. I spoke my truth clearly and calmly when needed. Aunt Lydia's testimony was powerful, detailing years of neglect and witnessing the violent climax. Chloe's video was undeniable, playing on screens for the court to see, showing the shove, showing their immediate, cruel reaction. It was irrefutable proof. The final trial culminated in a courtroom tense with anticipation. Listening to the closing arguments, the weight of everything seemed to press down on me. But then, the judge's voice cut through the tension, calm and authoritative. He read the verdicts. Guilty. Lucas, Caroline, and Robert Carter were found guilty on multiple counts. Then came the sentencing. The judge's words were deliberate, emphasizing the severity of assaulting a pregnant woman, the lack of remorse, the clear intent to cause harm or distress. He spoke of accountability and consequences. He handed down substantial prison sentences. In that moment, a deep, shuddering breath escaped me. It was over. The family who had caused me so much pain, who had endangered my child, were being held accountable. It was not revenge. It was justice. It was a validation of my truth, of my pain, of my right to be safe. After the verdict, the legal world faded, and the real work began, healing and building. We decided to find a new home, a place entirely ours, free from the ghosts of the past. We found a small, charming house with a sunny yard. Daniel and I poured our energy into making it ours. I decorated Elias's nursery myself, pouring my heart into painting a mural of a peaceful forest filled with gentle animals. Each brushstroke felt therapeutic, an act of creation overlaying the destruction I had experienced. My art became a way to process my trauma, to create beauty from pain, and eventually, I started sharing my story and my art online, connecting with others who had experienced family trauma. It was terrifying but incredibly healing. Our days were filled with the simple, profound joys of raising Elias, building our life with Daniel. Friday night pizza on the floor, Sunday morning cuddles, walks in the park. We built a supportive network of friends. Chloe remained a close friend, and Aunt Lydia became a cherished part of our lives, visiting often. We found a community where we were accepted and loved for who we were. The scars, both visible and invisible, are still there. The faint line on my temple, the occasional ache in my back, the deeper emotional wounds that still surface sometimes. But they do not define me. They are reminders of what I survived, and how strong I am. I am no longer the invisible girl, the black sheep, the dramatic inconvenience. I am Stella. I am an artist. I am a wife. I am a mother. And I built my own home, my own family, brick by brick, with Daniel and Elias. It is not a perfect, glittering facade like the one my family chased. It is real. It is messy. It is full of love. And it is finally completely safe.